The ancient archives of the Galactic Historical Repository stood silent, rows of dusty holographic records waiting to be discovered. Captain J. Park moved carefully between the towering data columns, her fingers tracing the faded schematics of a long-forgotten warship called the USS Prometheus. Most historians considered the ship a mere legend, a story told to inspire young cadets about humanity's lost technological achievements. But Jay knew something was different about these records. The fragments suggested something extraordinary had happened during the Centauri conflict 2 centuries ago. Her research assistant, a young data analyst named Daniel, watched her with skeptical eyes. "Captain, these records are incomplete. They could be fabricated historical propaganda." Jay ignored him, her attention focused on a particular data crystal that seemed to pulse with an unusual energy signature. When she inserted it into the central scanning unit, fragmented images began to emerge, glimpses of a massive spacecraft with technology that seemed impossible for its time. The ship's design was unlike anything in current galactic records. Quantum phase shielding technologies that shouldn't have existed, weapon systems that defied conventional understanding, and an artificial intelligence core that seemed more advanced than anything developed in the last 100 years. "This isn't just another forgotten spacecraft," Jay whispered to herself. Her fingers moved quickly, recording every detail, every fragment of information that flickered across the holographic display. The repository's environmental controls hummed softly, casting a blue-white light across the archival chamber. Dust particles danced around her as she continued her meticulous examination, her eyes burning with determination. What made the Prometheus different was its mysterious disappearance. During the most critical moment of the Centauri conflict, the ship had vanished without a trace. No debris, no communication logs, nothing. It was as if an entire warship had been erased from existence. Daniel approached, holding a datapad with additional historical context. The conflict was humanity's most desperate military engagement. We were losing territory, resources, and hope. Many believed the Prometheus was a last-ditch experimental project. Jay nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. The ship's original mission parameters were encrypted, protected by computational security protocols that would take years to decrypt. But something in her gut told her this was more than just another historical mystery. As she continued scanning the data, a strange energy reading caught her attention. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but definitely unusual. The reading suggested the ship's quantum core might still be active, dormant but not completely dead. "Impossible," she muttered, recalibrating the scanning equipment. But the reading remained consistent. The repository's silence seemed to grow more intense, as if the archives themselves were holding their breath. Jay realized she might be on the verge of uncovering something that could change humanity's understanding of its own technological history. Her colleague had always dismissed the Prometheus as a myth, a story invented to boost morale during humanity's darkest period. But myths, Jay knew, often had kernels of truth hidden within their narrative. The data crystal continued to pulse, revealing fragmented schematics, partial mission logs, and glimpses of a technology that seemed to exist between reality and legend. Each fragment told a story of desperation, of innovation, of a last-ditch effort to preserve humanity's future. As the day wore on, Jay Park remained in the archives, her determination unwavering. She would unravel the mystery of the USS Prometheus, no matter how long it took. And somewhere, deep within the encrypted data, something ancient and powerful waited to be awakened. The ship was more than a myth. It was a promise, a technological testament to human resilience that had been waiting, silent and patient, for the right moment to reveal itself. The starscape erupted in a violent dance of destruction. Massive warships from the Orion Alliance and Kraken Confederacy exchanged brutal weapon strikes, their energy beams cutting through the darkness of space like angry lightning. Commander Kiro Tanaka watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the Kraken flagship. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers from both sides were about to die in another meaningless territorial dispute. The sensors showed massive hull breaches, exploding fighter squadrons, and the continuous stream of destruction that seemed endless. Suddenly, something changed. A massive shadow emerged from the quantum distortion, unlike anything the sensors had ever recorded. The ship appeared without warning, no approach trajectory, no initial detection, simply existing where moments before there was empty space. The first officers on both sides froze. The vessel was massive, easily dwarfing the largest known warships in the current galactic registry. Its hull seemed to shimmer with an unusual energy signature, something between technological marvel and supernatural phenomenon. Initial scans revealed something even more shocking: the ship was human. "Impossible," muttered the Orion Alliance's tactical officer. Humans had been considered a primitive species, barely capable of maintaining their existing colonies. Their technology was generations behind the current galactic powers. But this ship defied all expectations. Quantum phase shields began to activate, creating a defensive barrier that seemed to absorb and redirect incoming weapon fire. When the Kraken Confederacy launched its most powerful plasma torpedoes, the projectiles simply dissolved before reaching the ship's surface. The ship's artificial intelligence, known as ARIA, began its systematic response. With cold, calculated precision, it started neutralizing both fleets' offensive capabilities. Weapon systems were disabled, communication networks jammed, and propulsion systems rendered inert. Within minutes, an entire battlefield of sophisticated warships became nothing more than floating metal coffins. Commander Tanaka watched in horror as his most advanced battlecruiser was reduced to a powerless hulk. The human vessel moved with a grace and efficiency that suggested technology far beyond current understanding. No communication attempts were answered. The ship simply continued its methodical dismantling of the battle formation, rendering thousands of weapons and defense systems completely useless. The quantum weapons were particularly terrifying. Where traditional energy weapons would cause explosive damage, these seemed to deconstruct matter at the molecular level. Entire sections of warships simply vanished, leaving no debris, no trace of their previous existence. Panic began to spread across both fleet communications. Commanders issued desperate orders, but nothing could counter the emerging threat. The human ship moved like a ghost, untouchable and unstoppable. ARIA's systems continued their precise calculations. Each movement, each weapon discharge was mathematically perfect. The ship wasn't just defending itself, it was systematically neutralizing any potential future threat. As the battle concluded, not a single ship remained operational. The human vessel had disabled an entire conflict without losing a single system or firing a traditional destructive shot. The quantum shield slowly powered down, revealing a ship that looked both ancient and impossibly advanced. Markings along its hull suggested it was the USS Prometheus, a name long considered a myth in galactic historical archives. Something had awakened this vessel. Something had triggered its original mission parameters after centuries of dormancy. And now, it was here. The universe watched in stunned silence as the legendary human warship completed its unexpected emergence, signaling a fundamental shift in the balance of galactic power. Humanity had returned. And they were nothing like anyone remembered. The suspended animation chambers hummed with a soft, rhythmic pulse. Inside, 3 bodies remained perfectly preserved, their cellular structures maintained by technology that seemed to defy the natural aging process. Chief Engineer Sung Lee was the first to stir. His eyes, which had not seen light for over 2 centuries, slowly adjusted to the soft blue illumination of the Prometheus's medical bay. Tiny nanobots moved across his skin, checking his vital signs and preparing his body for full activation. Nearby, Science Officer Hai Kim's chamber began its resynchronization sequence. Her muscles, which had been perfectly preserved, started to respond to subtle electrical impulses designed to prevent atrophy during long-term suspension. ARIA, the ship's artificial intelligence, monitored their revival with clinical precision. Physiological systems returning to optimal levels, the AI reported in a calm, emotionless voice. Cellular regeneration at 98.7% completion. The chambers had been designed as a last resort preservation method. During the desperate years of the Centauri conflict, humanity had realized that their survival might depend on preserving their most skilled personnel in a state of perfect suspended animation. Sung was the first to speak, his voice slightly raspy from centuries of disuse. Status report, ARIA? The AI projected a holographic display showing the recent battle, the ship's current position, and the systematic neutralization of the alien fleets. Mission parameters have been activated. Protective protocols for human colonies are now in effect. Hai examined the data with growing fascination. The technology surrounding them was generations ahead of what existed when they first entered suspended animation. Every system, every component seemed to have evolved during their long sleep. "How long were we suspended?" she asked, checking her personal diagnostic screen. 217 years, 3 months, and 16 days, Arya responded precisely. The medical bay's walls began to shift, revealing more detailed information about their mission. Classified files that had been locked for centuries now opened, showing the original purpose of the Prometheus. It was more than just a warship. It was humanity's ultimate insurance policy. Designed during the most desperate period of human expansion, the Prometheus was created to activate only when human colonies faced total extinction. Its AI was programmed to assess threats, protect human interests, and if necessary, re-establish human presence in the galaxy. Sung reviewed the mission logs. The ship had been equipped with technological capabilities that were theoretical when it was first constructed. Quantum replication systems, adaptive weapon technologies, and an AI core that could make strategic decisions faster than entire command centers. "The aliens have no idea what's coming," Hai muttered, looking at the battle records. Arya's response was simple and direct. "Protecting human interests is the primary objective. Current galactic powers represent a potential threat to human colony worlds." The ship's original crew had been chosen for their exceptional skills and their ability to think beyond conventional military strategies. They were not just soldiers, but pioneers, scientists, and strategic thinkers. As the revival process completed, the trio began to understand the magnitude of their mission. The Prometheus was more than a weapon. It was a message, a declaration that humanity was not forgotten, not defeated. "We are home," Arya's voice resonated through the ship's corridors, a statement that was both a welcome and a warning. The legacy of humanity had been awakened. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The alien fleets watched in growing terror as the human vessel moved with impossible precision. Commander Kiro Tanaka's hands trembled as he observed the Prometheus systematically dismantling their most advanced technological defenses. Quantum weapons, unlike anything in current galactic technology, began targeting specific molecular structures of enemy ships. Where traditional weapons would cause explosive damage, these strange energy pulses simply made entire battleship sections vanish without a trace. Arya's computational systems worked with cold, calculated efficiency. Each weapon discharge was mathematically perfect, predicting enemy movements milliseconds before they occurred. The ship's adaptive defense mechanisms transformed incoming missile strikes into harmless energy waves that simply dissipated around its quantum phase shields. "This is impossible," whispered the Orion Alliance's chief tactical officer, watching multiple battle networks collapse simultaneously. The Prometheus wasn't just defending itself, it was systematically neutralizing entire fleet capabilities without breaking a technological sweat. Sung Lee monitored the weapon systems, his fingers moving across holographic control interfaces. Each system responded with a precision that seemed almost supernatural. The quantum core of the ship generated energy patterns that could simultaneously attack and defend, something no known civilization had ever achieved. Hai Kim's scientific analysis revealed something even more shocking. The ship was learning. With each enemy weapon discharge, Arya was updating its defensive and offensive strategies, making real-time adjustments that rendered opposing technologies completely obsolete. Entire squadrons of advanced fighter craft became nothing more than floating debris. Communication networks collapsed. Propulsion systems were rendered inert with surgical precision. The Prometheus moved through the battlefield like a ghost, untouchable and unstoppable. The most terrifying aspect was the complete silence. No dramatic explosions, no massive energy discharges. Just precise, clinical elimination of technological threats. Commander Tanaka realized they were facing something beyond a weapon. This was a message. A clear, definitive statement that humanity was not the primitive species everyone believed them to be. Arya's systems continued calculating. Each movement was designed not just to defeat the current threat, but to establish a long-term strategic advantage for human colonies. The AI was thinking generations ahead, neutralizing potential future conflicts before they could even emerge. Weapon systems that had taken alien civilizations centuries to develop were disabled in milliseconds. Defensive networks that protected entire planetary systems were rendered useless by the Prometheus's quantum computational abilities. The ship's exterior remained calm, almost peaceful. No dramatic weapons protruded, no obvious offensive capabilities were visible. It simply existed, and in its existence, it destroyed everything that threatened human interests. Technological supremacy was not just about power. It was about understanding, adaptation, and the ability to neutralize threats before they could fully manifest. As the battle concluded, not a single enemy ship remained operational. The Prometheus had systematically removed an entire conflict without losing a single system or experiencing any significant energy drain. The quantum shield slowly powered down, revealing a vessel that looked both ancient and impossibly advanced. Markings along its hull told a story of human resilience, of a species that refused to be forgotten. Commander Tanaka understood now. This was more than a battle. This was a resurrection. Humanity had returned. And they were nothing like anyone remembered. The universe watched in stunned silence as the legendary human warship completed its mission, signaling a fundamental shift in the balance of galactic power. Technological supremacy had a new definition. And it was called the USS Prometheus. The USS Prometheus moved silently through deep space, its quantum engines creating invisible ripples across the galactic landscape. With clinical precision, the ship began establishing defensive perimeters around known human colony worlds. Aria's computational systems worked tirelessly, mapping potential threat zones and creating sophisticated defensive networks. Each colony received advanced technological upgrades, quantum shields, predictive defense systems, and communication networks that could not be penetrated by any known alien technology. Sung Lee watched the process with a mixture of pride and fascination. Humanity's forgotten colonies, small settlements scattered across distant star systems, were now being transformed into impenetrable fortresses. The technology they were implementing was generations ahead of anything currently existing. Hai Kim analyzed the data streams, noting how quickly the ship could adapt and protect. Entire planetary defense systems were being upgraded in minutes, technologies that would have taken alien civilizations decades to develop. The galactic communication networks buzzed with confusion and fear. Reports of the human vessel's capabilities spread like wildfire. No one understood how a ship that had supposedly been lost for centuries could suddenly appear with such advanced technological capabilities. Aria's final transmission to the galactic community was simple yet definitive: humanity remembers. Humanity endures. Planetary governors from different alien civilizations watched in stunned silence as their most sophisticated tracking systems were rendered useless. The Prometheus moved like a ghost, untraceable and unstoppable. Within days, human colonies that had been struggling for survival now became the most technologically advanced settlements in known space. Defensive capabilities that seemed impossible became standard. Entire planetary systems were transformed overnight. The message was clear: humanity was no longer a forgotten species. They were a force to be reckoned with. Commander Kiro Tanaka, who had witnessed the initial battle, submitted a classified report to his superiors. His recommendations were stark and simple: do not engage. The human vessel represented a technological leap so significant that conventional military strategies were now completely obsolete. Sun discovered something even more interesting during their system diagnostics. The Prometheus wasn't just a warship. It was a preservation mechanism, a last resort method to ensure human survival during the most desperate periods of galactic conflict. Hidden within its quantum core were complete genetic databases, technological archives, and survival protocols that could rebuild human civilization if necessary. It was more than a weapon. It was humanity's ultimate insurance policy. Aria continued its methodical work. Each action was calculated, each defensive measure precisely implemented. The ship was not just protecting current human colonies, it was preparing for potential future threats. The quantum shields that surrounded human settlements began to pulse with an energy signature that seemed to defy current scientific understanding. Weapon systems that would take alien civilizations centuries to develop were now standard protection. High realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. The Prometheus was not just defending. It was re-establishing humanity's position in the galactic hierarchy. As stellar weeks passed, the initial fear transformed into a new understanding. The human vessel was not about destruction. It was about protection, preservation, and strategic defense. Aria's final initialization sequence completed its primary objective. Human colonies were now the most technologically advanced settlements in known space. The ship had transformed from a myth to a reality that would reshape galactic civilization. The dawn of a new era had begun. Humanity had returned. And everything would change. The universe watched in silent anticipation, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again.